The movement was begun by a scientist who discovered, quite by accident, these signals being sent. Please understand, they are safe as long as they are not discovered.
They want their weapon.
Look out for Charlie.
I want that son of a bitch dead. I want him dead.
Every once in a while, it seems like I have to go backwards because there are new viewers or people start to forget things. Look, what I'm showing you, what I'm telling you in these videos throughout this channel is not, things that I've conjured up. There's enough of that out there. If that's what you're looking for, you can go find that, or pseudo-intellectual theorizing on what is going on. I'm showing you the science. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a video again from 1985, because this went dark after that. This went really dark around 1989, really dark. But what we're going to do is we're going to watch it, and I'm just going to stop along the way and talk about it. So, Mystery Charlie Theater 3000, here we go.
Part of a family of weapons which operate within the radio frequency segment of the electromagnetic spectrum, and are thus referred to as radio frequency weapons. Dr. James Frazier has researched electromagnetic effects for the Air Force for over 10 years. And he, like a small but growing number of weapons experts, feels that radio frequency, or RF weapons, could be the wild card in the ongoing arms race.
You could have tremendous amounts of radiative power. And what you did with that power then is a matter of engineering design and what your goal is.
It really just depends on your imagination and who you want to use it on. Unfortunately, it's being used on our population now, and most of the population doesn't even realize that it's being used. That's the insane part.
Say that microwaves and other types of RF pulses operating at specific frequencies or windows can be transmitted with little or no loss of power. CNN has repeatedly asked the Department of Defense and the Air Force about radio frequency weapons. After much resistance, DoD finally said that the subject was too sensitive to discuss.
They said it was too sensitive to discuss in 1985. Okay, and then you have these people, when they were asking about them around the turn of the century, saying, oh, that's in its infancy stages. Oh, that stuff's in its infancy. It's all wired and blah, 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 blah. Bullshit. This has been weaponized for decades and decades and decades. Don't you think it's kind of funny that they were talking about this a little more openly in 1985, and then when the going postal and all that crap began, then it slowly got darker and darker, and then it just dropped off. And now it's just people every day getting on buses, losing their minds, stabbing people. You think people just randomly come up and just stab somebody or shoot somebody? They do that because they're being convinced that the person walking by is doing it to them. It's insanity. The whole thing is insanity, and these people with their depression and their bipolar and all their crap, this is all due to RF and dopamine levels and all the effects that it has on the human brain. You feel like shit all the time, and that's why.
My next report, unexplained cloud-like phenomena, which may be evidence of a Soviet breakthrough.
That was considered cloud-like phenomena back then, and now you see that everywhere. That was something strange. Now you see practically like a checkerboard lines, and that was crazy back then, to linger in the sky. Think about that.
And RF technology. In this futuristic Hollywood tale, the subject still had to be connected to the machine by an electrode headset.
That's remarkable.
But not as remarkable as a real-life experiment where I was the subject of a prototype device designed to project images into the mind without electrodes.
So people are asking, lots of questions. Man, I'm getting these weird images when I sleep or while I'm awake or whatever. And it doesn't feel natural, what's going on. It's the same thing that's been going on since 1985. Nothing has changed. It is just piggybacking everywhere, and it's within the infrastructure. Why not build it to work within the infrastructure that you already have? Because that is exactly what the woodpecker did as well.
The prototype machine, developed from Soviet scientific data, could, according to some scientists, have a profound effect as a weapon of war. Electronic mind control research is not new. In recent years...
So they're telling you in 1985 that electronic mind control technology is not new. RF weapons were not new in 1985. And here I am in 2022 trying to get through to people out there. Trying to tell them, look, this is why you feel like shit all the time. Look, this is why you think you are bipolar. Look, this is why you think you're depressed. Look, this is why you're hearing the Fry effect in your ears. Look, this is why this, it's all insanity. And on top of that, he just told you that it was wireless. It's now wireless.
Electronic mind control research is not new. In recent years, the behavior of monkeys can be altered using low-power, pulsating magnetic fields.
No wires.
In these experiments, there were no antenna implants.
Any function in the brain.
No wires, no nothing in 1985. Before 1985, no wires. It's like, wow, man, what planet are you living on? And they don't know anything about technology. They haven't researched the technology. They don't understand it. They picture beams and Marvin the Martian guns and all this shit, and that's why these people can't understand it. And unfortunately, a lot of the people who experience these frequencies are the ones that are out there pushing those ideas, and that is why they get laughed at.
Emotions, intellect, personality, could be perhaps modified by this non-invasive technology.
Non-invasive technology. Completely non-invasive technology.
Frequency, or RF device, has been used for over 30 years to manipulate the moods of mental patients. It's called a LIDA machine, pulses of radio frequency energy. The pulse rate is in the extremely low frequency range, between 0 and 100 pulses per second.
Well, they don't use it anymore. We should be very clear that this is a machine which is regarded by them as somewhat obsolete technologically.
So this was just a pulsed radio wave mood and basically a mind-altering machine that had existed for 30 years in 1985 and was obsolete. All right, and they keep making you think that in the future there will be mind-altering radio frequency weapons when they've been here for your entire life and you are oblivious to it.
This scientist, who did not want his identity revealed, is employed by the U.S. government and has done secret RF weapons research.
Certain kinds of weak electromagnetic signals work exactly like drugs.
Certain kinds of weak electromagnetic signals work exactly like drugs. Think about that sentence for a while. And then think about James Holmes and the myriad of other people who have been set up with parallel construction or claimed such things.
And so the promise is that anything you can do with drugs, you could do with the right electromagnetic signals. You could have a cause and effect relationship between a magnetic field and a biological function.
Induce basically what would be considered hallucinations in people, direct them to do things against their so-called better judgment.
So basically what he just said, induce hallucinations or get people to do things against their better judgment with sound and visualizations. So basically you could simulate mental illness, you could simulate an interrogation, you could simulate practically anything, especially once you've devised a two-way communication system, something like the wireless network.
How easy would it be to assemble a weapon from existing off-the-shelf parts?
In 3 weeks, I could put together a weapon that would take care of a whole town.
So I guarantee you, when he said in 3 weeks I could put together a weapon that could take care of a whole town, I guarantee you that when he was talking and going further into detail, he mentioned the power grid. I guarantee you that he mentioned the power grid and utilizing that power grid as an antenna for the infrastructure that he was talking about.
The Defense Department explanation of the woodpecker is that it is an over-the-horizon radar designed to track U.S. missile launches Some scientists suspect that the woodpecker is designed to interfere with human brain function.
As far as I'm concerned, the potential that this has for producing a direct psychoactive effect upon the total American population is there, has never been disproven.
And that's where everybody's at. Because with all the evidence that I've shown over the years, literally, now they're at the point where they have to prove me wrong. And they have to prove us wrong. And that's why people would rather just ignore this channel and ignore the information than face it or try to combat it.
Becker is a pioneer in the field of bioeffects of electromagnetism.
The signal range within which the woodpecker operates is that which has been reported by many investigators to produce a tranquilizing effect upon animals.
We are just incredibly sensitive to these magnetic stimuli.
Dr. Bob Beck, a PhD in nuclear engineering, has done extensive research into electromagnetic effects on humans.
The signal was permeating power grids in the United States. It was being picked up by power lines, re-radiated. It was coming into the homes on the light circuits.
On the light circuits. This is everything that I've been telling people for years. It doesn't have to originate from the power grid. So even if somebody tracks a signal down to a substation, that does not mean that it's originating from the substation and the guy running that comes and checks on the substation is an evil scientist doing something. He is probably completely oblivious to it because this has been at work for years and years and years. And it is using the power grid as one of the main forms to get into homes and into apartments and other structures.
They demonstrated theoretically and also demonstrate experimentally that low frequency, low energy electromagnetic fields also can possess biological efficiency.
Military working in the field of electronic mind control. Officially, the Department of Defense will not comment because the subject area is, quote, too sensitive.
Again, the DoD, DARPA, all these organizations in the United States wouldn't comment in 1985 because the subject was too sensitive. But then you had Rumsfeld and all these people during the Iraq War when they were totally screwing with those people's brains, as well as ours, that all this stuff is just, that's science fiction. It's like Star Wars. It is mind-blowing that people just keep falling for this over and over. They can tell somebody about this stuff in 1985 and people are still going, I don't know if that exists. I'm not sure.
But CNN has learned from this government scientist who did not want to be identified that a Navy laboratory conducted research into the use of an RF device for counterterrorism and special operations.
It's possible to entrain a certain percentage of a population.
Now, pay attention to what he said. He said it's possible to entrain a certain percentage of the population
with weak magnetic fields.
The study also showed that RF signals could dissolve certain types of rat brain cells at a distance, causing disorientation and nausea.
A series of tests of these kinds of weapons, apparently, for a number of years. For example, airliners from Iran, before the fall of the Shah, saw deep within the Soviet Union very large glowing spherical balls of light which started out small and then expanded to very large size.
There's your UFO, kids. There's your aliens. I'm sure that you can actually have, I can't prove this yet, but I'm sure that you can actually have an RF avatar that would show up on or trick a radar into believing that it's actually there when it isn't. Now imagine with RF weapons actually, like, not psychological weapons, but actual physical weapons and psychological weapons combined with visual weapons, the kind of invasion type operations that you could do. The imagination could go wild thinking about that.
Which are apparently these kinds of weapons for use in an anti-ballistic missile defense role.
Pilot Doug Happ was in one of the 5 airline crews that saw an incredibly large cloud rising from the moonlit overcast below.
It looked like a plate coming up through an overcast, but it just kept expanding. And as it got higher, it was apparent that you could see right through the middle of it, so it looked like a big smoke ring.
And people see shit like this all the time. I mean, you see halos around the moon, around the sun, all kinds of crazy shit now. And people don't even give it a second look or a second thought anymore. They've got their faces buried in their phones, and they just don't even care. It's like nothing. Where before, you know, I used to talk about this a lot back in the day. If people would have seen the things that were in the sky now, they would have thought that that was an alien invasion itself. Like just a bunch of trails in the sky the way they are, without halos and plates coming up and all glowing balls and all that. You know, it's insanity.
In my next report, how radio frequency devices can be used as weapons against the human mind.
All this stuff was ready and available and wireless, completely wireless, before 1985, well before 1985. Because of the infrastructure that exists now, it is much easier for them to use on people and to use in mass, where before it like Paul Benowitz, for example, it took an operation. You know, the NSA moved in across the street and started doing things to him, and they don't need to do that anymore. And so, you know, you get these people that say, well, why would they do that to him? Why would they do that to you, dude? Talking to people, but there's no them. Do you understand what I'm saying? It doesn't take work. It's not the way people envision it, because they're thinking 20th century. They're not thinking 21st century. They're not thinking automation and AI. And they are totally oblivious to this. And the sad thing is they were openly telling you that it was wireless and weaponized in 1985. That's it for now. Look out for Charlie. That's it for now. Look out for Charlie.
Oh, man. I like this kid. This fucking guy's crazy.
Look out for Charlie. I want that son of a bitch dead. I want him dead.